Welcome to the Inside Brit Bowl podcast. I'm your host, Arran Harrison, and joining me as always is Kiwi, ladies first, and Nick, where tonight we will be talking about the WFFL Finals. I say that slowly on purpose just because it's a bit of a mouthful for me. So we will go through in terms of the start, so the quarterfinals, so it will be the championship bracket. We will then talk about the plate and how that develops and who wins that, and then we'll come back to the championship bracket to talk about that and who the eventual winners are, if you don't know already, which I'm sure you do, but we will give a bit of context. So, Nick, how have you been since we have last caught up?
Aging badly, I'll be honest with you. My age rate is being accelerated by the prolonged wait for a finalised set of fixtures for Division 1 and Premiership. It's aging me. Straight out of the blocks. Here we are.
No shame about it there, Nick.
Yeah,
but
but it's okay. Apart from that, things are going well. We've had a lot of rain down this way, but flag football continues. When it rains in Carlisle, we shine. I'm trying to find a catchphrase there. It doesn't really work. What about you?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, Kiwi and I have obviously been doing our usual jaunt up the M6 and stopping at T-Bay and trying to plan where and when we charge the electric car on the way up, which is always fun. I have to say, it wasn't too bad this time round, whereas previously it was a bit of a nightmare, to the point where I think when we went to the Edinburgh Rogues game, we actually took the diesel car, not the electric car. So, yeah.
How very not middle class of you guys. Come on, seriously.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Middle class stopping at Seabay. To get the squad.
It was still middle class because it was in a Jaguar XF R Sport, so it was still middle class. I'm going to miss that car when it goes. Anyway, Kiwi's laughing because she's making me get rid of it. But anyway, Kiwi, I know the answer to this, so I'm sure there's going to be no surprise for me. How have you been since we last caught up?
I've been good. I'll be honest though, when we were at Ravenscraig at the weekend, I did feel a little bit gutted that I didn't have my kit bag with me. I guess inspiration for next season, being oh so close yet oh so far. I think I said to you in the morning, I was like, I really wish I had my kit bag with me. So anyway, apart from that, I'm good.
And no spoilers, but had you been there, I think the team that eventually took your fourth spot, I say took it away from you, I think they held on to it and you couldn't quite claim it from them, but they had a good showing. But no spoilers just yet. We will talk about that in a minute. Okay, cool. So WFFL Finals in Ravenscraig. As always, it is. It's. Do you know what? I do really, really like the facilities up at Ravenscraig. I do wish the cafe was open when you've got full finals day and it's on longer. Do wish it was open. I've got a big engine to fuel and therefore like to eat a lot. So we had to end up ordering a Pizza Hut.
A toddler to keep constantly fueled as well.
Yes, there is that.
There's money to be made there. I tell you, there is. If anyone wants to set up a sideline business, you put a burger van across the street from that place any day of the week, and you would make a killing.
Especially right next to the big park as well.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's so untapped, isn't it? It's when something's government funded, when you don't actually think about any of the commercial avenues, you're just like, that's great. We get money for this. But it's a fantastic facility. It is an amazing facility, and you've got a rare Tim Hortons around the corner, which I don't know if you discovered or not, but that's...
No.
Yeah, look at you. Yeah. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Well, we did get a pizza delivery, and there were several people that walked past that were like, oh, we can tell you've done this before. Because we were watching the final on the sideline with our pizza.
You've got within vicinity, right? Just sorry to digress before we get into the meat of the
all
matter,
right.
but let's start with the hors d'oeuvres. Within the vicinity, you have a Tim Hortons, you have a KFC, you have a McDonald's, you have an Asda for the non-discerning customer, you have a Greg's. I mean, you're in Scotland when like you literally can't find a vegetable anywhere, but there's every type of fried food you could ever want onto the planet within.
To be fair, last year we ordered a KFC to be delivered, so we probably already went for that. So, yeah, we've used that one. But no, it was good. I had a few technical issues on the day in terms of we had all these graphics prepared, and then despite apparently having the best in the business in Adobe Creative Suite, it kept letting me down trying to update. So I had to do a bit of improv on the sidelines on the day, but hopefully everyone could still follow the scores as and when they came through. I got them out pretty quickly. I certainly beat Baffer to it because I was sat next to Rory half the time when he was updating his and thought, right, I'm going to get mine out now before him.
Distracted.
Just
throw a ball over there.
Competitive nature, to be fair. But anyway, so at the end of the day, it was a good day, and we will get on to it, and we'll start talking about it, shall we? Sorry, I'll just move my mic slightly. Okay, so championship bracket. You'll see that I've not shown any scores of the semi-finals or the final or the bronze medal game.
Oh, technical.
Yeah, so basically I don't want to give it away. So we're going to start, it's the championship bracket because obviously everyone starts on that side of the day and the bracket. So starting, we had EKP Black. I don't think this is actually in order on the day, but EKP Black and Leicester Huntsmen. We had London Flame and Manchester Titans. We then had Sheffield Giants and Coventry Panthers. And then we had Coventry Cougars and EKP Red. So, for those that are listening or not watching on our YouTube, I will talk through the scores and then so you know the scores that we are talking about, and then I will go to yourself, Kiwi, and Nick, and we can talk about it. So, quarterfinals, EKP Black beat Leicester Huntsmen 41-7. London Flame beat Manchester Titans 20-6 points. Sheffield Giants and Coventry Panthers finished up with a 35-0 victory to Coventry Panthers. I must be clear on this as well. It's Coventry Panthers Onyx. And then Coventry Cougars beat East Kilbride Pirates Red 32-0. So, Kiwi, you've obviously got a bit of context. You was there, you was in the mix of it. So I'm going to go to Nick first. So you can't give all the information away and then leave Nick nothing left to comment on. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on them scores?
I think they're broadly aligned to where our predictions were, to be honest. I feel a bit sorry for Sheffield because you would have thought that, that's 35-0. Even though Coventry are an excellent team, okay? They're not the Coventry, but the Coventry as well, So that's a bit of a disappointment. I'm pretty sure they weren't entirely happy with that. But in the general run of things, this is kind of largely how we saw it going, really, isn't it? When we're talking about this. I think the key thing taken away from this is obviously the dominance straight away out of the gate of the Coventry teams in terms of defence. They're giving up nothing from the get-go. At least in the other two games, you saw the opponents putting a score on. But that kind of almost sets a background mood music to see where things are kind of swinging in the day in terms of those performances. So no great surprises. I think, if anything, looking at that, probably tough work for Leicester without a starting quarterback. They accounted themselves well, but you're never going to beat a team like Black unless you can stay in the race, unless you can keep the points up, because they're a team that can score. Even if they give up some, they're a team that can score. So, that's... I think that's my takeaway from it. That's the two things I'd say. Sheffield, shame they couldn't have got a score, to be honest with you. It's a long way to go for your opening game to be shut out. Leicester, good on them, but I mean, you're never going to be able to fight a team that good if you've got one hand behind your back. It's as simple as that. So heartbreaking, because that's my favourite team, and that's them out in the first round. Or into play, anyway,
Yeah, into the play bracket, which we'll come on to after this, after we've closed this bit off. But Kiwi, you know a bit of context behind that Sheffield Giants game. So, yeah, fire away.
Well, let's start there then. I think Sheffield had a super tough day at the office, and we'll no doubt discuss that a little bit further in subsequent slides. But just as Arran said, to put that in context, obviously having played the Sheffield girls twice myself this season, and knowing them from the north, they were missing several key players for playoffs. So Marta wasn't there, who we know is a star for them both on offense and defense. And they were also missing two of their key wide receivers, who were all three kind of pulled out with illness sort of 24 hours prior to finals. So that's a rough call, right? You suddenly got one playbook, one plan, one, strategy involving your key players, and then to lose a handful of them right before a game is not ideal. So, and that we saw that with them on the field. We saw them struggle a bit more than we would have expected, especially given how close they were pushing, Black in the final games of the season. It was a little bit, gutting, I guess, to see at the end of the season for them. But, they also had players playing defense who hadn't played a snap of defense all season. So it's rough. We all muddle in and you get things done, especially for finals. But I think that definitely showed on the field. So tough one for them. But hopefully they can come back next year and rebuild from that. The other game that I pretty closely watched was the London Flame Manchester Titans game. I was on mother duty and had a sleeping toddler in the pram at the time, but I stood behind the end zone and watched most of that game. It was quite close in the first half, I would say. Manchester were still in the game heading into half time, but London just kind of dominated. And I think where London Flame were dominant was really in their blitz. So they have a couple of blitzes, not just Jock, who are super fast, like some of the fastest blitzes I've seen in a long time. And, we have some fast-ish blitzes in the north, but I think when Manchester came up against that super ultra fast blitz from London Flame, it was just a struggle, and they just struggled a bit to get the ball moving. I think their defense actually played exceptionally well, Manchester's. To hold London to a 20 score line is a pretty good achievement, but their offense just really struggled against the London defense, and I think that's where that game was won.
Is it fair to say, from your observation, that Flame have got possibly the most athletic team? And I mean, if you take aside skills and plays and everything, and you think player for player, because I was looking at some of their stuff on socials recently, and they look like a bunch of athletes. I mean, they look like a bunch of great athletes. So am I maybe just being
No,
skewed?
I would say for sure on defense, I would argue that's probably true. But I think if you look at offense, I think when you've got players like Abby Coleman playing for EKP Black, who is the most bendy, dips her knees, moves her hips, is all over the place, quick kind of player on offense for EKP Black. I think, there are other offenses that can push them, but I think definitely on defense, that's where you see the real speed and attack from Flame with their athleticism and their players, for sure.
Yeah, and I would highlight and maybe say that I'm pretty sure, I'd be comfortable in saying that every team has a couple of solid athletes. So, Kate Bruinvels at Flame, she is a solid athlete. She's been in the GB setup for a good number of years and is certainly their main target. My one takeaway really of London Flame for the whole weekend was, I would argue, maybe a bit too one-dimensional, unfortunately, in terms of Kate saw a lot of the ball, which was, look, if it's working, why change it? Ultimately, it just makes it a little bit predictable. Another, I would say, Sunshine Santos at Sheffield Giants, formerly of Leeds, equally absolutely rapid. And as Kiwi said, Abby Coleman, who was definitely on one. She was on one this weekend. She was fired up, and she was just all over. In fact, I've obviously seen Abby Coleman quite a lot over the last couple of years. The GB setup, Contact GB, Contact with Caledonia Chaos, or previously EKP. Her part of Caledonia Chaos, obviously she came from EKP, and then EKP Black and GB Flag. So, I've seen a lot of her, and I don't think I've ever seen her that fired up and that rapid. So she's definitely developing and definitely good. So I'd say, in terms of all rounder, maybe London do have a bit more of an athletic all round squad. But I'd say
there's a purpose to the question. I'm just trying to decode this enigma of where this team's going to come from and the rapid ascension, and you can do a lot of that on Sunday You Rock. I mean, we did it with our male our mixed NFFL team, rookies in the league, but we just knew that he just threw better athletes at the other team. You speed them, you jump them, and you win games just off that, and then you can mature in time with your plays and your playbook and eventually move into a dominant position. But no, I asked that purely. I wasn't there, so for the listener, the other thing that let him down in the day wasn't just the debate. It was the nearest member of the podcast group, the nearest member, literally less than 100 miles. And we had a house viewing that day, what can I say? But I know I asked the question because I'm very curious to see how athleticism is becoming more and more of a factor in the game as we get towards the Olympics. It's drawing players in. There's a lot of focus on that. And I'm interested in that. But you're right, I've seen Abby play a lot. I coached Sunshine when she first came into Contact. I remember her first ever season at Leeds, and I was on the offensive coaching staff, was running back coach, and there was this tiny wee thing, and I thought, what's she going to do? But then you put her behind Laura Dye, and my goodness, Laura Dye put in a big block, and Sunshine was gone. And I thought, you're lightning. I saw her play at safety too, and take people out in some of the hardest hits I've seen anyone deliver. I just thought.
So we first-hand experience. So by we, Kiwi and I used to run the Cheshire Bears. And Kiwi was the general manager whilst I was the running backs coach. And I have never seen anybody get downhill so fast from a safety position to stop the run. Immense. She's absolutely rapid. But of course, I'm saying Sunshine. There's also Marta as well, who wasn't there on the day. So I think the athletes are there, and I think Flag is a bit more developed than certainly in the women's game is more developed than what people think. And I mean, you look at the GB results, you look at the international tournaments, that tells you everything you need to know. They are, back-to-back European gold medalists, by luck. So I think, if you're looking at the most progressed and the most developed aspect of American football in Great Britain, don't sleep on the WFFL, because I'm telling you now, it has produced some outstanding players and that are still playing. So yeah.
I was going to rudely interrupt you there, but I was going to just say that I think if you look at that and Contact, if we take a look down the years at who's had the greatest success, and I'm not saying the women's game is better than the men's game, because there's different dynamics there, there's different teams there's different amounts of players behind that and squads behind that, but just when you bring it right down to results, the women's programmes are more effective internationally than the men's programmes in both formats. And that's just, anyone who takes offence to that listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, that's just an academic fact. I'm not saying it means it's better, I'm just saying that the standard's definitely there. And you do see it,
You do, and And you know, I mean, Kiwi will tell you, and most people who know me, I have longed and always focused my attention on women's football. You know, we started the Cheshire Bears, and that was created because, quite frankly, at the time, very different people run it now. The Cheshire Bears used to be the Chester Romans women's team, but unfortunately, you know, I've got to be careful how I word it, but let's put it this way: they didn't really prosper under them. So the decision was made to give them the tools that they need and the equipment and everything else to go it alone and show, certainly Brit Ball what can happen if you give females the opportunity in sport. And that's what we did with the Bears, and they got very successful. Not quite as successful as, like the likes of Birmingham Lions and the London Warriors, granted, but they got successful. But I would always still argue from an international perspective, and this is not taking away anything away at all from anyone that's achieved anything with GB, because I'm telling you now, both women's teams and even the under 17s girls that won the gold medal in Italy a couple of years back as well, not taking anything away from them, but it is also a fact that other countries, unfortunately, are not as developed in the women's game as they should be. And therefore, I would argue slightly that the competition would be tougher in the men's brackets of international, just because there are, quite frankly, countries that have just not developed the women's game, regrettably, because they should. So, again, not taking anything away from the women's GB setups, their achievements have been amazing and no mean feat whatsoever, and hard work that they've all put in to achieve that and rightfully deserve. But if you was being objective, you would also say that as well, from an objective opinion.
And I think
anyway.
you see that. No, but you see that at domestic level too. We look at back a few weeks ago when we recorded the last podcast. We were wrapping up the season, and you and Kiwi were making some really insightful remarks about stats, and we're looking at the tables. You take a look at the spread between top and bottom, and it's probably far greater than if you looked at a typical conference spread within the NFFL and I think that is a fair point. Because you see teams with minus hundreds deficit and teams with plus hundreds, and you think, wow, you're playing each other twice a year. This is like a 56 or a 76 niller twice a year. You just don't see that. There isn't that.
No.
The top to bottom is about that much in the mixed game. The top to bottom seems to be about that much in the women's game, but the top is very, very, very good. Very good.
And we'll move on to obviously we'll get back into the WFFL finals now, but I'll end it with, I also firmly believe that despite what other countries and how developed they get now with the Olympics, etc., I still back our girls, or all female teams, to still be where they are in terms of ranking and stuff. I still believe in them. So please don't think that's me diminishing their achievements, because it absolutely isn't. Anyway, back to the bracket. So obviously these results then meant that we were set up with a couple of tasty semi-finals, and that was EKP Black versus London Flame and Coventry Panthers Onyx versus Coventry Cougars. So a rerun of last year's final already in the semi-finals. So that would mean that we will have a new team participating in the final.
How dare they?
Exactly. How dare
Did somebody get a permission slip for that? I mean, that's
exactly. Yeah. And by new team, I mean not last year's teams, because EKP Black were in the final the previous year. So before anyone shouts at me. So anyway, we are going to come back to this bracket, because obviously that means... Oh, sorry, Kiwi. Go on.
No, not quite. So we've had two Coventry finals last year and the year before. The previous year to that was a Black Cougars final.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because Cougars won and then Panthers won last year. Last year was a rematch. So we've had two Coventry finals.
Okay,
I know my
fine.
WFFL.
Good. Well, so should I, but clearly I don't. Apologies, everyone.
Such an advantage to the idiot in the group. Thank you very much. Next slide.
Anyway, now that I've been corrected, we will come back to this bracket and back to those results. But obviously, the ones that lost in the quarterfinals, for those that don't know, dropped down into a plate bracket. So basically, the losers of the quarterfinals go into a plate semi-final. So I'm going to change and put the graphic on. Apologies to those if you are just listening. However, please check us out on YouTube because you'll be able to see all the wonderful graphics there and the scores. Now, for those that are listening, I will talk through the semi-finals first in terms of the results. So, Manchester Titans faced Leicester Huntsmen in the semi-final 1, and that score was 33-6. Apologies, I'm having to look. I've got a smaller screen today. So 33-6 to Manchester Titans. On the other side of the bracket, it was Sheffield Giants versus EKP Red, and that was Sheffield Giants 19, EKP Red. Shock, Kiwi, you got your mouth open. Go on, talk us through it.
So, what Arran didn't finish there is that EKP Red got 20 to Sheffield Giants 19. And so at this point, we had set up camp in the middle of the two fields trying to watch both games. But honestly, we were just so drawn into this Sheffield Red game because you could tell it was tense. And you know when you don't know what the score is, but you know that it must be like really super close because everybody's like hanging on a knife edge. There's how much time is left? How many timeouts have we got? Like, it was just like, you know, when you don't know the score, but you know it must be close. And you see teams just that like intensity coming from the field and from everybody watching. And, you know, I did mention before about Sheffield obviously missing a bunch of their key players. But that's not to diminish Red coming out and taking it to them, right? And taking their chances and getting a win over them, which they have never done in their history, I believe. I'm going to say that with pretty reasonable confidence that that's the first time that Red have beaten Sheffield. And, you know, we kind of talked about how whoever came in that fourth slot, when we think back a couple of weeks, was kind of just there to make up the numbers. They were getting the fourth slot in the north, and Red came out and said, no, we're not having that. We're going to go out there and we're going to take it to them, and they've come away with a win. And, you know, a huge shout out to them for doing that. You know, they have improved hugely over the course of the season. And I think, obviously, they train with the black team. They get all of those advantages of the coaching and stuff. And I think it's really improved their game. And, you know, testament in playing them, the first time we played them, we beat them. And then the second time we played them, they absolutely showed us that they had improved and came back and beat us. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that was, you know, hugely impressive and a huge shout out to them for that. I think on the other field, probably largely things went the way we thought that they would.
Can I be controversial?
Ooh, okay.
I mean, I wasn't there, all right? So I do not have, so that's my disclaimer, right? Anyone who takes offense to this, I wasn't there. But that to me it echoes exactly what you said before. Now, you in the last slide said that Sheffield hadn't been able to bring key players. They weren't able to run the game. That is a team they should have beaten, and they know they should have beaten them. And any other given Sunday, to want the expression, that is not a result that you're going to see, okay? Plus, you layer into that, you're shell-shocked. You've just taken an absolute drubbing in your first game. You've turned up, and somebody's just mopped the floor with you. You know, so any confidence you had in what's our backup plan? Oh, we've got a great backup plan. We're going to do it this way. Let's change a few plays. You know, you do when you're down a few players, and you kid yourself and you think, we'll just run things a little bit differently and it's all going to be fine. You know, like we've all been there before. And things go badly. And you walk into the next game, you're so disheartened that it takes you everything just to find yourself again and just to pick yourself up again. And if you're missing those key elements, I'm sorry. I'm going to be really harsh, and I'm really close to the East Kilbride crew, and I know that there's going to be some disdain in this, but that to me looks like a game that Sheffield should have shown up, taken care of business, and moved on through, and they didn't. And because Red were on it on the day, like you say, you know, and also the home team advantage, like this is on their doorstep. They're as fresh as you can get. You know what I mean? It's it's enough to edge them out by a point. That's harsh. I wasn't there. I'm just gonna.
I don't disagree. I think if you'd asked anybody, and even if you'd asked Sheffield going into that game, based on the results of the entire season, they absolutely would have expected to come out with a win and expected to be playing in the final. And it just didn't go their way. They were missing key players. They didn't adapt. But in fact, I spoke to some of the girls after the game, and they said to me, "I think we forgot how to play football." That's how, they were like, we just couldn't get it together. I think we forgot how to play football is literally what they said to me as they were walking off the field. And I know that they were devastated, but I don't think that takes away from the fact that Red came and played and they took their advantages. And it's happened before, right? I know for a fact that the Huskies got a win over Sheffield last year in the final, game day of the season that was totally also unexpected. So, they have prior history of doing that, but I still think yes, Sheffield didn't play the way they usually do, but also Red took their chances and took it to them, and came out with the win.
I'm going to add a bit more depth to that as well, and I think we have to acknowledge and give the EKP coaches some kudos here, because not just on this score, but on the previous score. Coventry Cougars, the best team that the WFFL has ever seen, and they only lost 32-0, right? So for me, and watching the game, they used up absolutely every single minute and every second that they had. They used that up.
Okay.
So I'm going to give the coaches kudos here, because they showed up and they had done their homework, and for me, I think it was a bit of a tactical masterclass, if I'm honest. So I'm going to give them kudos, because I think they did their homework, and the players I'm going to give kudos because they had a plan, they came with a plan, and they executed. And I think, to your point in terms of Sheffield Giants, and to your point, Kiwi, in terms of they forgot how to play football, I don't think they did forget how to play football. Unfortunately, I think the head coach is Adam, isn't it, of Sheffield Giants. I felt a bit sorry for him, because whatever plans and whatever tactics he had and prepared for all went out the window when half of his team didn't turn up. Half's probably a bit dramatic, but... Yeah.
No, but if it's your key players, you have schemes based around key players. I mean, even if your players, even if you've got one standout player, I know we were talking about Flame just feeding that the whole time and just playing that the whole time, but coaching smart, you use that as a decoy as much as you use it as a go-to, because you know it's going to take the best safety away. It's going to take the best. You're going to get a double coverage on it. You're going to be able to use that person to free up so many other schemes that you can out-coach those kind of scenarios. But I just wanted to hear your point. I wasn't there, and I'm looking at it purely from, I looked at a set of fixtures and then look at that and think, but hey, you know what I mean? You are right, and I didn't give that credit. The previous slide, you're looking at 32-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
32-0 against an extremely dominant team who aren't humble. They're there to run up a score on you because they've shown that that's what they do. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean they want to go out and they want to win. I mean, they've got a lot of people who want to get stats. They want to stat bad. They want to go for it, To hold them to that score, that's not disrespectful. If you're a good team, you're entitled to do that.
Yeah.
To hold them to 32, you're absolutely right. That suggests to you that there's some pretty smart football being played to say, do you know what, you're not going to have your way with us. It's not going to happen. We're going to let you have 5 TDs, which really takes a couple of seconds to score TD. Means you're going to have a few moments of brilliance, but otherwise we're going to largely suppress your game. That's good football. All right, so credit.
Well, yeah.
And as Arran said, what they did was they just chewed up every second of the play clock to give Coventry less time with the ball. They weren't silly. If they didn't have a play, they threw the ball away instead of giving Coventry a pick. They're the types of things that we expect Coventry to do. So they absolutely had a plan, as Arran said, that they weren't going to let Coventry run the score on them. They weren't going to give them the opportunities on defence to take the ball away. And on every single play they had on offence, they chewed up that play clock so that there was far less time for Coventry to have the ball back, even if they went for it out. So, as Arran said, an absolute, stroke of genius from the EKP coaches who just said, well, Coventry, as you say, we're not going to let you just run the score up on us.
And the players for executing it.
Yeah,
it was a pencil whipping. It was a pencil whipping, as we call it. Yeah, right? It's just like, but that's cool. That's football. And if you've got a team that you can frustrate teams. We did it a couple of times in the different format of Winter League. We have a really short clock, and if you're playing a really good team like the Hornets or Top or whatever, if you just chew up the clock, they're only going to get 1 or 2 touchdowns and a half because there's not enough drives to be able to do more. And they're going to have to go long. So you just have to stack your safeties back. You can almost, even though they're a better team, they're going to beat you. You can dictate how that beating comes. You can control that game in that respect because you can say, we're going to force you to do the one thing that we know that you're going to do. And you're still going to score, but we're going to frustrate you and we're going to limit your scores. You're not going to get your bonus point. You're not going to get whatever. You can control that if you play a smart game. So, all right, I take it back. EKP, please, don't set fire to the house. Just questioning the start,
Conscious that we have the championship bracket to get onto, and I need to finish off this plate bracket. So basically, with them results, that means that it would be Leicester Huntsmen and Sheffield Giants in the 7th and 8th placement game, which Sheffield came to in the end and won 18-0. But then that meant that, obviously, on the flip side of that was a Manchester Titans and a EKP Red final, which ended up being a 26-7 win to the Manchester Titans. And we haven't really spoken, Kiwi, I know you touched upon them on the quarterfinals, but we haven't really spoken much about Manchester Titans, but they look good. You've got to admit, their offense was a little bit slow to start with, but they did look good throughout.
I think they were. So I was on the sideline, right as that first game against Flame was ending, and I know that Manchester were extremely disappointed with the outcome of that game with Flame. I think they went in there with a plan, and they definitely thought they could come away with a win. So for them to get back up and then obviously win the plate, I think massive kudos to them. I think their defense were exceptional, as always. And I also think that as you say, their offense got there towards the end of the day, but just were slow starting in that game against Flame. And as I mentioned, I think that the Flame blitz really had something to do with that. But they did get going, and they, came back from that tough loss in the first round to obviously go on and win the plate. So, that's almost harder, I think, in some senses, to come back from a loss that you thought you could win and then still come out and put it together for the rest of the day.
Good stuff. Right, so that was the plate wrapped up. As you can see, my wonderful photography skills, not so great, if I'm honest. I also had nightmares with the equipment on that as well. I mean, some would argue it probably wasn't the equipment, more the operator, but we shall move on before somebody does say that anyway. So that takes us to the championship bracket. And in that we have East Kilbride Pirates Black playing London Flame and Coventry Panthers Onyx playing Coventry Cougars. Now, we saw it was almost like semi-finals of two halves or two sides or two different stories, however you want to describe it. But ultimately, we had a close game in EKP Black, 27, beating London Flame with 25 points. So 27-25. And then on the other side, we had a dominant, and the game was very dominant, performance by Coventry Cougars, who beat Coventry Panthers Onyx 32-0. Very tough for the Panthers, given that they are, or at this stage, the reigning champions. What are your thoughts, Nick?
Oh, well, I mean, straight away you can see Cougars are giving up nothing there. It's like that's 2 games before they've conceded anything. They've not given up a score. So you can see straight away the trajectory there. It's like, you know what they say: offense will win you a game, defense will win you a championship. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to shut teams out, then you're ultimately going to win things, because that's what it is. Won or lost. I don't care what anyone says. So great, fantastic. I am looking at the other side though, and I had this thing going into it. I had this big faith in the Flame. And I kind of had this real feeling they were going to make it to the finals. To see them fall short by 2, that must have been a heck of a game. And equally too, you know, I'm definitely not going to disrespect East Kilbride again twice in the same 5-minute spell. But you think to yourself, in tight margins like that, if you're coming all the way from London as opposed to travelling a mile or two, you lose by 2 points, man. That's a bitter pill, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's a tough one.
Yeah,
must have been a great game of football though.
It was, and Kiwi, you saw quite a bit of this game. Unfortunately, Nick, I was trying to get videos, and when you're looking down a phone or a camera or trying to get videos, you don't actually see much of the game. So I will defer to Kiwi and
to our listener. The subtext is there that Arran's saying, if you'd been there, Nick, then I might have had enough time to actually do something, because somebody else could have done some of the technical stuff.
That's absolutely not what I'm saying. Don't worry, I would have still been doing the videos and such. And actually, no, going back to your point about Coventry Cougars, I actually have some really good videos of shutdowns from Coventry Cougars. No messing around. Some deep balls going in and they were shut down. So you're right in that sense. But Kiwi, apologies. I keep bringing you in and then discussing more. So go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think you touched on it before. I think I don't know if it was good defense from the Pirates who had done their homework on Flame, or if it's been the style of their offense all season, because I haven't obviously seen Flame play before the day, but you mentioned it. I would say 80% of their completions were to Kate Bruinvale running from centre on a check down. And we know that will get you chunks of yards, but it really doesn't get you probably the big scores that we were expecting. Now again, I as I say, I don't know if that's been the style of London's offense all season. What I actually suspect is that the teams that played Flame, particularly EKP, had done their homework, knew how to shut them out down the back, because the London Flame QB definitely had an arm to throw, because she threw quite a lot. They just fell incomplete a lot of the time in the backfield. And I think, in the end zone. But Kate was on, not to take away from her, she was on fire, and her yards after catch were exceptional. She not only would take the pass, but then she was, it wasn't just 5 yards, and she was getting 10, 15 yards each time. But unfortunately, it just kind of didn't seem enough. And then, obviously, the score isn't massively different, but those little things, I think, just all add up to this points difference that we saw. And as Arran said, Abby and many of the EKP girls were just on it. I think they were like, we lost in the first round last season. We lost the final a couple of years before. I think they were determined that they were getting to that final this year, and they'd done their homework, and they were just doing enough to get past Flame, knowing that was going to be where they were really going to be pushed, And I think, Arran, correct me if I'm wrong, I know we looked it up on the day and I can't remember what we said. Was it Flame that knocked out EKP last year in the quarterfinals?
Yeah, I think so.
It was. So they had a vendetta against them, right? Yeah. Because what happened last year is that Flame came in, first game, EKP Black had gone 8-0 in the North, and they lost in the first round and ended up in the plate. So they definitely had something to prove as well, I think, against this Flame team, which just added to that fire that we saw from them, I think.
They wanted it more than or they had the edge. It's that old thing. A game's won in inches, isn't it? Not in yards. It's a little bit here, it's a little bit there. And if you keep going to the same source for checkdowns, brilliant as that player might be, for a team that I guess is coached by ultimately the same coaching unit that ultimately look after Red as well, which means that you've just looked at a team that's just put on a bit of a coaching masterclass by your own words against a very, very dominant team in the early rounds. they're not gonna. They're not just going to miss that trick, are they? It's going to be
No,
within
and
5-10 minutes. You're locking into that, and you're just shutting down the rest of the flow if the quarterback's not hitting the deep ball.
no, and even on Black's offense, right? They played a lot of 2QB. How do you beat that quick blitz? You play a 2QB and force someone else to drop down to cover the second. Like, that was a lot. So they hadn't just done their research on the London offense, but also on how they play, their defense and how they can beat that. They knew going in that those blitzes were quick, and they had a plan to beat them. And they have two strong throwers in that team and they did just do a lot of back and forth between two QBs in the backfield till they got the look that they wanted. So, they came in with a plan, but ultimately the players executed it. They held their heads, and they, came away with that win.
You'll win. I mean, we had a good conversation a year ago with Jason Masters from Team USA on this podcast. We had a great conversation, and he dissected the 2QB system. Ultimately, you drop into that. The team has to therefore respect the fact that you're sending 3 and holding back 2, which means that by default, the defense has to put 2 up, which means you've got man cover. Irrespective of, we're going to play 2 deep, we're going to play 3 deep, we're going to do this. No. The minute they go 2QB, you're no longer in control of what's happening. You are now in a man cover situation. And if you know you've got that one matchup, you're going to beat it every time. And that was what those guys did when they came over, and they were just wiping the floor with everyone. They were just playing American football, and it was just the way they were doing it is they were just forcing teams to have to play them in man coverage because they knew that somebody was going to mess up. And good teams do that, and that's where the 2QB system really works. It's not having the 2QBs; it's having the better 3 players that really makes that whole system open up. It's great.
Definitely,
it's great football.
Yeah. So those results then meant that Coventry Panthers, Onyx, and London Flame dropped down to the bronze medal game, and the Coventry Cougars would face EKP Black in the final. So the bronze medal game, again, for those that are listening and not watching and can't see the screen, Coventry Panthers Onyx beat London Flame 26-7. Now, I don't think I was expecting that, if I'm honest. I was expecting a closer game, especially given, let's be honest, the day that Coventry Panthers had so far. I didn't expect that. So, yeah. Kiwi, thoughts?
Well, I was just going to say, and I heard this on the grapevine, so, I'm not going to name names or say sources or argue that it's true or false, but what I had heard was that the kind of Flame statement wins over the Panthers and in the regular season were done in extremely rainy weather when we all know that football is difficult. So I think...
Don't buy that.
You don't buy that? Okay. Well, I'm just putting it out there.
And the reason why I don't buy it is because both teams have to play in them conditions.
Yeah, fair. But I think what Panthers did is they came out and showed that they're still, a good team. They're still a dominant force. They, obviously lost that difficult game to Coventry Cougars, but came back and put it together against Flame. I think generally we haven't spoken much about the Panthers Onyx. I think their offense struggled quite a lot. I don't know what it was, whether it was personnel or what, but I know that they seem to struggle quite a lot on offense. And it's hard to say whether, Cougars arguably might have just had the run of it. Know how they like to play. They've played a lot of games against each other. That happens when you play the same people repetitively. You get to know styles and games and play. So, but obviously they put it together and, still came away with the third place there.
Yeah. Definitely.
Nothing to add, to be honest. You've got Cougars, that's Coventry Panthers, should I say. They've been beaten by Cougars. They probably regard themselves in the back of their mind as, we should have been a final team. We deserve to be a final team. The way it's fallen has fallen against us. Therefore, we're putting everything into this game, and this is going to be our finals game. So I think Flame coming into that disheartened possibly by a narrow loss, thinking maybe we could have got to that last round, the final stage, the final itself. They're deflated. The other one's got a point to prove. the rest of it's football, you know.
Definitely. I would also argue as well, in favour of the Coventry Panthers offence, they did end up with points above zero in terms of net points of the day. I just think, that unfortunate result against Coventry Cougars ultimately was again a defensive masterclass, unfortunately, for them. Anyway, that leads us to the final. So that's EKP Black versus Coventry Cougars, a rerun of I'm Reliably Informed by Kiwi a couple of years ago. And that saw, what can only be described as the 10th and record-breaking, or at least it's equaling a record, I think.
I believe.
Yeah,
I believe
the
equal.
10th championship title for Coventry Cougars as they beat the EKP Pirates. East Kilbride Pirates. It can't be EKPPP Black. Anyway, EKP Black 46-28. So it's probably a tighter game than the score would suggest. But yeah, 10th title, 10th championship title, Nick. What are your thoughts on that?
You can't take anything away from that. That's consistency, and that's a dominance within a game. And you said before they're a generational team. This is their time we're in right now. It's going to take a heck of a team to come along and beat them, and I don't think that we can dismiss any of their achievements in any way, shape, or form. You do it once, great. You do it twice, great. You do it 10 times, that's ridiculous. You're a great football team. And I think the defence showing up in those first two rounds, given the break, they gave up 4 touchdowns in the day. You play 3 games of football, you give up 4 touchdowns. I'll take that. It's like that's just fine, isn't it? So credit to them. And interesting to see in this photo they've already started to develop the generation youth team coming through there. I do worry now though with only 5 digits in each hand. Like where we're going to go with this now. Do you know what I mean? Is it going to be like shoes off next year? We're going to have to find a way to. But hey, what a team! I haven't played against them. You have played against them personally, Kiwi, and in a player perspective, a game can be seen in a whole different way that you never see it from a sideline. You don't get that same taste of the game. What's it like?
Well, if I'm honest, I've never actually played them.
No, she's been lucky. She's been lucky.
You played everyone.
No, because we play in the north and the south, right? So they sit in the south and we sit in the north.
Yeah,
so
I've
sure not
you
had.
Must have played them. You never played against these. Not even at friendly tournaments.
Thanks, Nick.
Or...
Just remind me that we've not made finals and therefore not played any of the south.
I didn't realise I was being cruel, but what the heck, I
I know we already mentioned it. You had a dig at me last podcast. It might have been after we'd finished recording, but. Honestly, you just can't help rubbing it in, can you? Honestly.
Ain't no points
Nick,
for ninth in an 8-player in an 8-team competition, right?
I've not exactly that. I've not had the, I'm going to say pleasure, but the experience of playing Cougars. I know them all. I've watched them play quite a lot, but I haven't played them, thankfully, because they are just, they just have playmakers on every side of the ball in every position, and they put it together, right? They have options, they have players, they do their homework, they're well trained. You can't take it away from them. And I think if you look at the game and if you watch the game, please go and watch the game if you haven't seen it. It's on YouTube. It's available to watch along with some of the other games from
the BAFTA channels, I think.
Yeah, on the BAFTA channels on YouTube. But I would argue that Coventry came out strong. They got up by, I think, 2 scores, I want to say. But then, Black got themselves back in the game. They got a couple of good scores in. They were in the game at halftime, I think, is fair. I don't remember what the halftime score was, but I remember it being, it was maybe only 1 score. But then Cougars just came out in the second half and just, took it to them. And EKP just didn't seem to have an answer for what they were doing. They also made a switch late in the second half to bring Millie Barrett in. and moving Jess Allen out to wide receiver, which ultimately gives them also a 2 QB option because, you've got 2 great QBs there. Jess is a threat not just at QB but also as a wide receiver, as we saw. So they also kept mixing it up to keep Black guessing, I think, and ultimately, the score was dominant at the end of the day.
I think I would have got. I like this, by the way. I think that would have been even cooler because I noticed that Millie's doing that. I don't know about the rest, but yeah, it just there's a W there as well, guys. Market opportunity. Great team.
I do like it. Normally, I don't like stuff like this. I think it's a little bit self-indulgent. But 10 championships, they've earned the right to do it. So they absolutely have earned the right to do it. So yeah, it's definitely. It was a great day. It was a tiring day. I'm glad we decided to stay over on the Friday and the Saturday night and not try and drive back down on the Saturday. But it was a great day, and I credit to again. A lot of people give Baffer a lot of stick, and I know they've got their challenges right now with schedules and stuff, but. Again, there was a good solid team there. Nick, a couple of your guys was up there officiating. So it was a great day and it was well organised and, a good celebration of women's American football ultimately. But on that note, that wasn't the only real thing. It was the day before Mother's Day that it was held on. And I think... this last image, Kiwi, I'm going to hand over to you, but for me, this last image says a lot as the Coventry Cougars, and they weren't the only team that were doing this, but obviously had their children with them. Kiwi, I know this is something close to you, so I'll hand over to you, but it has a lot of meaning, I guess.
Yeah, I guess being involved in the sport as a player, as media, as the one thing that I see time and time again, especially in the WFFL, is, all of these women that are out there, not just playing, but their mothers, their aunties, and just the sheer amount of support, encouragement. I was there with James at the weekend. The amount of people that came up to me and said, oh my God, I can't believe how much he's grown. We've seen him come every year. This is they knew that he'd been there the last 3 years in a row. They were patient and supportive when he's running around with his monster truck on the sideline. And that's the same.
With a good distance, just to add, not near the pitches.
Not on the field.
Was it within 3 yards of the outlet?
I was corrected at the weekend. Apparently it's 5 yards, but I'm pretty sure the last time I read the rule book, it was 3 yards, Nick. So I'm sticking with you,
But look, I think for me, what I love about the flag community, about WFFL, is that no woman has had to choose between being a parent or being a player. Everybody's in it together. You see it here. It's just part of the culture of it. Whether they had their family and their children on the sideline, the Panthers QB was there with a baby. I don't know how old she was, but I would hazard maybe 3 or 4 months old. And she's there playing finals with a baby on the sideline, and I think it's just an amazing experience. And with it being Mother's Day, I think it was pretty, nice to see all of that happening, as well as seeing some amazing, skillful games of flag from these same women.
Yeah. Super women, super mums. I think that's where we will end it. So thank you for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, hope you like the images. I took about 1,000 images and about 3 of them were any good. That's it. But we hope you like. For those that are listening, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Likewise on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It does really help us in terms of the ratings and the algorithms, the social media algorithms. There's the same for podcasts as well. So Nick, you and I are going to catch up very soon and start focusing on the NFFL. which I'm sure will be a great bumper first episode. So tune
Controversy
into
packed.
that.
Well, there's
Tune
going to
into
be
that when we do.
no me to keep you guys in check. I'm a little bit concerned. I'm popping back off to the Contact podcast to talk all things NWFL. So yes, I pray that we can keep some kind of order to the time when I'm not around.
Two grumpy old men. Battle scarred. Oh, do you know? I feel sorry. I feel sorry for anyone who gets across our radar in the next 6 months, because it's going down on this podcast. It is going down.
And I'll have to do a hell of a lot of editing, I'm sure, just to try one, to get it down to time, and two, to make sure that we're not offending anyone. But yeah, so Nick and I will be recording the first NFFL podcast in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for that. And as Kiwi has already alluded to, she will be joining the contact team to talk all things NWFL, of which I can't, because I am not biased. Sorry, I am biased because I am a coach in the NWFL, so I'm expecting Kiwi to say all good things about the Cheshire Bears running backs.
And I simply stopped caring about contact years ago.
Well, that's fair enough. That's fair. It's a good job we do separate these podcasts out. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and for wherever you're listening and whenever you're listening, tune in and keep an eye out for new episodes.